Cool. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the little technical difficulty. I meant to be here earlier, but I ended up switching with Jeff, who's doing the introduction to PHP, who's in now room 162, just because that room was pretty small. So I'm actually glad we did, because all of us would not fit in that other room. But I actually was planning to have this up. It's a Dilbert cartoon. Has anyone, I'm sure people in here have heard of Dilbert. Yeah. We don't even need to do the hand raising because it's a safe assumption. And when I was looking for, just trying to find images that I could use for this presentation, targeted images, I started coming across a lot of cartoons from Dilbert. I was like, what in the world is going on? And then I actually found out that this is a common theme in a lot of Dilbert cartoons, is dealing with management and expectations. So today, I'm gonna do as much as I can in the next 45 minutes on talking about Agile. Does anyone here have any experience working in an Agile way or even thinking in an Agile way? A little bit? Cool. So to start this off, want to make sure that Agile can be pretty abstract in its concepts. It's a significant paradigm shift from the Waterfall model where you set all your expectations up front and then you are not allowed to adjust. You're pretty much promising not to learn anything along the way in that very traditional sense. Obviously, there are different variations of it. So when we talk about something like this, I like to introduce how I stumbled across Agile a few years ago. So I run Last Call's client services team, and I also am a member of the company's leadership team. So I'm often involved in company direction conversations from the very beginning, sort of figure out what is this company doing, where are we going, what are the things that we want to be doing, who do we want to be. So along the way, I was really stuck and making a lot of excuses as we'd be trying to figure out how to organize all of our thoughts. And people say, oh yeah, just write a business plan. 5 years, figure out what you're going to do along the way. And has anyone here ever written a business plan? It's pretty common. Anyone here written a 5-year business plan? Anyone here 5 years later look at that business plan and see how accurate it was? So thinking about writing an explicit plan for where I want to be and where the company wants to be in 5 years gave me serious gridlock. We really tried. We bought the books even. There's a shelf in one of the offices that has all these business books on how to write a business plan, what are the things to say. And really what it is, it's how to make yourself sound good if you're looking for things and the way that the books are describing is a way to organize yourselves and have these conversations. And then where we really got lost and where we really struggled was actually putting that down on paper. Because in 5 years, who knows, especially in this industry, what we'll be doing, what will be the current trend, what the organization of the company will look like. So, and then personally, I struggle with writing things that in 5 years may not be true. Why am I writing something if I know it's not going to be true? So I face pretty serious analysis paralysis, convinced that the word 5-year plan gave me anxiety. We definitely jotted some things down to organize ourselves and appease third-party interests like investors or financial institutions. So just thinking about how I can in 2015 articulate things for where we want to be in 2020. It's pretty overwhelming. And then I stumbled across...
There are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
So I think that kind of sums up, playing on Rumsfeld here for a minute. He was really clever at being able to say, I don't know. But really what he was trying to say is that he has absolutely no idea. And there was so much of this, just thinking about how to articulate an explicit plan for the next 5 years. So I struggled with it and, postponed it. We're busy, we're swamped, our schedule is full. Why do we need to be sitting down and thinking about this stuff? What do I do if that plan changes? If I write something today and 6 months later, the plan's totally different, what am I supposed to do? What do I do if I learn something new? In 6 months, Drupal's still pretty cool, but there's a hot new thing, and we didn't really account for that in our plan. Do I follow the plan? Just go straight for it. I wrote it down. I spent the time on it. I got everyone to agree to it. I don't want to change the plan. That would lead to chaos. What am I supposed to do? How many known unknowns are there? I know that I don't know everything that can possibly happen in the future. There's a lot of unknown. What are all the possible unknown unknowns? And then how do I work on things that aren't important to me? We do a lot of really great work with a lot of really great organizations. So thinking about how to pull energy away from that and growing the business that way to thinking about writing a plan, just I never really got that spark to light. And also, where's the fun, right? If all I have to do is come into work every day and follow a plan, where can I be creative? Where can I bring my own style to the conversation? So for fun, I wrote this fictitious plan in about 3 minutes. This would be that business plan where everything is prescribed in advance and everything kind of sounds like a great idea. And you have 5 years to do it. So, whatever, just write stuff down. And even if they're not good ones, you can check it on a regular basis and sort of see how things are going. So first year, we're going to increase our company size by 50%. We're going to purchase an office building. We're going to rebuild our website to increase traffic and conversion. That sounds like a great year one goal. 2, we're going to hire that VP. I don't know who that VP is or what that VP will do, but I know we need a VP because that's what I read in my business book. And I'm going to build and ship a product. I don't know what that product is. I'll figure it out later, but I need to have it done. But then I'm going to do ship V2. So before I do the version 2 of the product, I need to do the first version of the product. So if I don't do the first version, I can't do the second. I'm already setting myself up for failure. And then I'm going to open a second location on the West Coast. I'm going to redo the leadership structure to support managing partners. All this stuff sounds great. And then I'm going to take over the world. That's what I'm going to do in 2019. If you ask me in 2018 what I'm going to do in 2019 is take over the world. And this is, by the way, the final version. No changes allowed. So it's very ambitious. What happens if that reality changes? What if I never find that VP? What if my cash flow becomes a concern? What if I lose half my client base? What happens if I can't find that VP? But the plan says I have to. So do I then focus all my energy on that VP? So one of the things I can see is a lot of changes in that company's plan. So if you're going to change the plan, why build the plan? And then I realized, I don't know how many people in here know Kelly. Kelly runs LCM. But I imagined, hey, look, here's Kelly on your first day of work. Welcome to LCM. Here's the plan. Here's our business plan for the next 5 years of your life. And don't forget, no delays or surprises, right? So if you're wondering, where have I heard this before? Think of the government. I was down at GovCon a few weeks ago, and I met a lot of people there from the government, and they were all like energized about how they were going to come in and reinvigorate the government's digital world, and how the government conveys information to its citizens. And I met people there from the Department of Homeland Security, all the other Treasury, and they were like, yeah, we got hired. And they used words like agile and innovate and all these buzzwords that they read online. But on my first day, they handed me a huge binder and said, this is your job for the next 5 years. That really sucks. So instead, I counter with, what are the goals? What is our direction? And what is our mission? This is what I know. This is what may not change. So I want to give this to the team, and we can figure this out in real time. So instead of giving an order, is anyone here familiar with the difference between an order and a command? I didn't really know about this until a few weeks ago, but an order is when you give explicit details on how to do it. So clean your room by vacuuming the floor, making your bed, organizing your clothes. A command is like, clean your room. That's the command. You give the full authority on how to do that to the person you're asking to do it. So I decided, cool tech.net's 5-year strategy. Strengthen relationship with open source community, be a destination for talented and passionate technology professionals, continue to develop reputation as trusted, full service digital agency, build long-term partnerships, pursue becoming an industry thought leader. Now, this is a mission, and I changed the word to vision. So we're going to do these things every day, and we're going to work toward these things. But there's nothing in here that if it doesn't happen, we can't do the other things. So it's also the current version, not the final version. So then really what that is I think that's core Agile. And so I thought, okay, I built this plan. I can't build this plan. Struggling to build this plan. How about instead I focus on where I want to be spending my energy, what I want to be doing, and then we wrote all that out. Everything was great, and then I stumbled across Agile, the word Agile, and I was like, this is exactly what I was thinking. I just didn't know what it was called. So when I read that, adapting to change over following a plan, one way is like, oh, you don't need a plan, just be agile, just do stuff, be agile. Reality wins. I'm doing something in the moment. That's all I got to do. Obviously, that's not the case. You still need to plan, but you're not committing to the plan. You're sizing the plan. You're gathering the troops. You're moving things forward because in reality, things need to get done. So Agile focuses on delivering value by adapting to change over following a plan. So we're still going to get work done, but we're going to deliver more valuable work. So LCM's business plan, right? Instead of explicitly detailing every single move, we're going to suggest growth projections through vision. We're going to use this plan to give the organization direction. We're going to accept that the path forward is unclear because the path forward is unclear. That's reality. We don't know exactly what's going to happen next week or the week after or 6 weeks after that. We leverage the experience, the uniqueness, and commitment of the team, the people that we have around us, the folks that come into work every single day, to create success. We prefer good ideas over following a plan. If you're following a plan, you're like, this plan just isn't working. Let's talk about that. Let's adjust rather than following that plan off a cliff. It allows folks to be autonomous since they make their own decisions. And we, at the end of the day, we work on things as best as we can, and it'll be ready when it's ready. So there's that concept in Agile where it's ready when it's ready. And when you have clients, that's really difficult to say. So kind of focusing here on more textbook academic Agile, and then there's real world Agile, which can sometimes vary. And Agile is great in that it's not one size fits all, so you can figure out how Agile works best for your organization. And there are different frameworks within Agile that you can adopt and even tweak. So what our plan does not is explicitly detail every step. It does not say when things are going to happen. It does not give due dates. And it does not resist change. Because one of the major rules in Agile is not to commit. So the difference between those two plans is one's committing to do something, the other is allowing the flexibility to figure things out as we go. And that sounds like a pretty serious, never-ending project. So why do we plan? Planning is a historical way that people use to get stuff done, but in reality, the team gets stuff done. They just follow that plan. You make a task, you assign it to someone, you hold that person accountable to get that task done. It forces that accountability. It's a classic example of management by objective. The plan doesn't get the work done, the team gets the work done. So let's figure out a way to embrace the team and get work done. So here are some of the great people that we work with. We have tons of fun with them. So despite how much we don't like to do 5-year plans, despite, we understand that you do need to have a vision, you do need to know where you want to go. So here's our obligatory blurb. We're a full service digital agency that likes doing work with purpose. We build solutions that help organizations in the spaces that they occupy. But I decided that, that's pretty cool. How about this? Last Call Media enjoys adapting to change over following a plan to build valuable solutions that assist and support organizations working to improve the communities they occupy. So, anyone ever been in this back and forth before? Client says, what do we tweak? What about tweaking this? You say, Oh, I'm not sure, that's not in spec, no delays, what are you working on? And all underneath it all, frustration is just building up, just piling up. One thing just snowballs. One thing turns into the next. So how does this happen? Well, has anyone heard of the Stacy diagram? Pretty cool diagram. So this is a visual representation of how to approach solving problems. So in this example, it's tough to read. So that says far from agreement, close to certainty, and far from certainty. So since we work in technology, we have the requirements, we have the technology, and we also have the people, the individuals that we're working with. So the requirements is the what. What are we doing? The technology is the how. How are we going to do it? So so when something is simple, everyone is close to agreement and close to certainty. That means you know exactly what you're going to do and exactly how you're going to do it. So then you also have the people. So when you have a small group of people, 3 or so, you've all worked together, there's trust, you know how this is going to go. That's a pretty simple project. Well, it can be a very simple project. This requires that everything be defined and everyone be totally cool that it's not going to change. So it works really well for binary type projects where it either does it or it doesn't. So it doesn't really work so well in the web world where there are multiple layers and layers of complexity. So when the team is sort of finding themselves up here where they're far from what they want to do, but they know how they're going to do it, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Agile kind of lives over here. When you know kind of what you want to do, but not exactly how you want to do it. So to bring Donald Rumsfeld back into this, you have your known knowns, your known unknowns, and your unknown unknowns in the house of pain. So most software projects run along the gambit of close to certainty, run along here somewhere. Most software projects find themselves in here, where you have a relatively, 10 to 15 people on the team, on the client team, on our own internal team. And then even sometimes you find yourself up here where it's just a complete mess. There are so many different directions, so many different people have so many different things to say, and the only thing that you can do is provide the time and the resources. You can't commit to requirements because you don't know what those are, but you want to do the project, you can deliver value. So how do you deliver value? Through anarchy. In a situation where you find yourself dealing with an anarchy situation. Right. So yeah, it could be a maze up here. Things are constantly changing. There's incremental decision making, small strategies, and you're constantly adjusting. You need a defined time box method so you can continually inspect and adapt the solution according to the realities of the shifting requirements. It is the best you can do. So another fun takeaway from this is when you find yourself in a situation up here and you force simplicity, that's when you're trying to force a waterfall project on something that won't work. When you're trying to force people to agree, when you're trying to force people on what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and you plan all up front and you all agree to it, that's when tension builds, the relationship gets contentious, things fall apart, things fail. So there are different, obviously many different ways. There's Scrum, there's Kanban, there's XP. There are a lot of different ways to navigate the complicated and complex. Obviously, the further it goes to the top right, the more agile you need to be, the more adaptive you need to be. So, there's whatever gets the job done, and then you find yourself with like Scrum, and then Kanban, and then XP, and then, Waterfall, and that simplification. So it's that concept of predictive versus adaptive. So when you know exactly what you're going to do, the requirements are well understood and well defined, and there's low technical risk, you find yourself on that end of the seesaw, and it's obviously a balance. You're not going to find yourself one day on one and one day on the other. There's going to be an in-between. So One of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of the waterfall process is there's really poor visibility. You estimate and plan as best as you can with all the info you have in the very beginning, but the visibility is poor. You're plan driven. You follow that paradigm of strategy, design, development, and test. You do it all at once, that relay race, and you think, okay, that's halfway, right? Because that's halfway between the budget. I don't know, that's halfway between the beginning and the end. That's halfway between the schedule, that's halfway. Poor risk management. What happens when you get the test and you try to tie everything together in the final hour and you're like, you know, $, exclamation, @ asterisk. Poor quality, right? You need to cut something when things start to take a little longer. And what's the one that always gets cut? Testing at the end. You just keep, oh, you know, I need a little bit more time for strategy. I'm looking at Rob. Just, you know, like add an extra week for strategy. Oh, you know, design took a little longer. That's okay. We'll just cut testing. Just cut this when you're out of time. That's a rule that they teach in waterfall courses. Poor change management. This isn't what I want. You know, you're doing the strategy, you're doing the design, you build it out, you get the wireframes, the mock-ups, everything, the prototyping, you have a spec, you put it all together, and at the end they click go. And it's like, this doesn't do what I want. What do? You're out of everything. The budget's done, the timeline's done, this was due last week. Enter Agile. That's my simple solution to that, at least. So Agile is a mindset where you focus on delivering value with working software by collaborating, adapting to reality instead of following a plan. So this is not my idea by a long shot. Some people way smarter than I am met in Utah and developed the Agile manifesto. Anyone here ever read it? One, two, a few, a little bit. I mean, like, it's from 2000. This is the website, and it's static HTML. You can even see that my screen was too big because the image repeats itself. It's pretty cool. Anyway, in early 2000s, 10 or so people in the software development world met in Utah, and they wanted to talk about their frustrations with being unable to adapt to change. So it may be easier to read this way, but the whole thing is we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. I'm sure people here may have heard, process over tools. First define your process, then find the tool. Don't try to pick a tool because it's cool and force your process into it. This takes it even one level higher, where you're focusing on the people, process, tools. Build working software over comprehensive documentation. Do stuff that works instead of making sure that you document everything that you do. Collaborate with your customer. Talk to them over negotiating a contract, right? Stylized warfare right here, contract negotiation. Respond to change over following a plan. I think that's the most important, is just be flexible that you may come in the morning and what you thought you were going to do is totally different. There's a huge shift to people who like to come in and know what they're doing for the rest of the week and the rest of the month. Huge shift. And while there's certainly value in having processes and tools and documentation and a contract and a plan, we value the items on the the left more than, because when I'm on the computer, or I just don't know my rights from my lefts. So to that, how do you uphold that? They came up with these really lovely 12 principles that we can touch on quickly. So our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So instead of holding out and deploying things on a infrequent basis, when you reach a certain milestone, release early and often. Get that feedback, adjust, be flexible, deliver value through your flexibility. Welcome change, even late in the development process. This works sometimes when the client wants a collaborative relationship and they thought, okay, we're going to do something this way. You even get the designs for it, or you do the designs yourself, and you're starting to work, and all of a sudden the client's like, I had an idea last night, and I think this would be really awesome. Now, there are certain frameworks that you can use because obviously developers don't want to hear right from the client. You don't put your client next to your developer so that they can sort of push pixels around all day. That's obviously not a way to deliver value and make sure work gets done. Because the other big piece here is that work actually has to get done. You can't just say you're doing Agile and then never deliver anything because you just never got around to it and reality wins. So deliver that working software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference of shorter timescale, also known as sprinting, because business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. This one I probably have the most problem with. You don't want your business people sitting next to your developers. I think that is chaos. That is anarchy. Obviously, there's, like I mentioned earlier, there are certain frameworks that have different roles that you can use to be agile, and so yeah, you can use those to prevent your business person from sitting next to that developer and asking to push pixels around. So build projects around motivated individuals and give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. One of the things that is really important to make this work is communication and collaboration. The right people have to be having the right conversation at the right time. There's no, oh, I'll just wait till next week to talk about this. If you're stuck and you need an answer, you have to talk about it. You just have to talk about these things. Working software is a primary measure of progress. Obviously, different teams will write software at different paces, but the way to tell how efficient the velocity of an agile team is through working software. You know, your client's only going to keep you around as long as you're delivering working software. So promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. Obviously, burnout here can be pretty big. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. This idea goes into how you want to build your design team. You want them to be multidisciplinary and self-organizing. So there is no, in an agile team, in Scrum specifically, there is no boss, there's no manager, there's a Scrum master, and that person facilitates the communication, removes impediments, but that person itself is not bossing people around. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. You have to be real about the work that you can do, and a time-boxed iteration or a time-boxed window. You can't set yourself up for failure in the very beginning by saying, I'm going to do all these different things, and then at the end you find yourself with a lot of work not done. So just be real about the work that you can do. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Like I mentioned, one of the key requirements in an agile project is that the team be self-organizing. No one's there to boss them around and manage them like that Dilbert cartoon. And at regular intervals, the team reflects on how they become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So this is about doing those retrospectives in Scrum, where at the end of every time box period, the team meets and they talk about the things that went well and the things that didn't go well, so they continue to work better. So the balance here is, on a waterfall, you're making commitments, and expending resources on work we don't fully understand can be very costly. Let's learn what we can before it's too late. Basically, let's plan as much as we can, but it can be costly if the plan does not turn out to actually deliver any value. In Agile, we can never learn all the requirements up front. We must move ahead and be flexible enough to learn as we go. So in the web world, because Agile can apply to so many different things, right? The traditional waterfall module methodology is to analyze, plan, design, build, test, deploy. That relay race of one thing after the next. Whereas you're not allowing for changing requirements, client turnover, or any sort of innovation. You know, if you're on a long project that's going to span 8 months and some new technology springs up, or there's a new version of something, and you haven't accounted for that, you're not going to want to allow that in a waterfall, or you're going to want to have a change order or some sort of change management in place. However, in an Agile, you're planning, you're analyzing, you're planning, you design, building, and testing at the same time, and you're deploying. And you're doing that over and over and over and over again. So in Waterfall, it's very horizontal. You're going from your spec to your design to implementation, testing, and that's your output. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. You may focus on multiple features or one feature depending on the size, but at the end, your expectation is that you're going to have an output that does all of these things. Whereas when you're in an Agile, depending on which methodology or which framework you're adopting, you may focus on one feature and do spec, design, implementing, and just testing all at the same time. So your output is one feature, but your team is multidisciplinary and self-organizing, so they're accomplishing all of those things in the same time-boxed window. So one of the great benefits to this is that you're deploying early and often, so you're not changing very much, or if you are changing quite a bit, you're able to sort of manage what you're changing. So you're frequently releasing, whereas in a waterfall project, you're not releasing early and often, so the risk that you're headed in the wrong direction is significantly greater. Waterfall is plan-driven. Your focus is primarily on the requirements, and your resources and time are estimated. Even if you say, this project is going to be 2 developers for 6 months, that's an estimation if you end up needing more time or less time. And Agile is the resources and the time are fixed. To develop, a 5-person team working for 3 weeks is going to deliver, or is going to work to deliver the following features. Agile has a concept of feedback loops. So on a daily basis, you're building something. At the end of every day, you're committing that back, and this loop is getting larger and larger as you continue to do more and more work. But you're continuously getting that feedback. People have common concerns with the Agile way of doing things. A lot of times, people are concerned with visibility being a key concept of Agile. If you're communicating early and often and all the time, I should say, and you're removing impediments along the way, visibility should be pretty high and consistent if you're doing it right. Whereas waterfall or traditional development, you're planning, and then you're going to build the plan, and then you're going to deliver something. So you kind of taper off and then get back into it with your deliverable. You can deliver business value earlier in a Agile way of doing things, and the risk is also significantly less because you're delivering early and often. But Agile, as much as it sounds like magic beans, takes a lot of work. You have to have a really great team. You can't just walk into a room and say, all right, the 4 of you, we're doing Agile. So just be Agile, rally wins, adapt to change. There are 12 other things, do all those. The team has to be multidisciplinary. So I think if you have a room full of hardcore Drupal developers and they're working on building really awesome, beautiful code, someone there has to make sure that they're actually building something that meets some business value. They have to be collaborative. They have to work well together. They can't be hostility between them. They have to be they have to be able to get stuff done. That's actually a pretty big one in any way of working, but just copy it over. They have to be eager to help each other, and they have to be motivated by the success of the team. So you have certain values that you look for when you're building this type of a team. You need to be open, so you need to have safe space, no regrets. People need to be able to have their own ideas. They need to be focused on their goals, on target. No, keep lollygagging to a minimum. They have to be committed to the team, to the craft, to the values of the team. They have to have courage They have to be empowered to be able to help each other, to be able to speak up. They have to have respect, obviously, can't have the rest. And visibility, you know, we may all know that developer that goes and hides in the back of the room and works for 3 days and doesn't talk to anybody, and then comes out, says, I did it, look everyone that I did it. That's not really being visible, and you're also not respecting one of the rules, which is adapting to change. There's that high risk that that person goes in the back and does completely meaningless work for 3 days. But they were focused and committed on what they were doing. It just happened to be the wrong thing. Humor, pretty important. These first 5 are actual Agile values. These 3 are not ones that I added myself, but ones that I've heard through my research on this over the years. Is you gotta have humor. You gotta like who you work with. Can't all be serious all the time. That sucks. And you gotta have accountability. So one of the main mantras in Agile is, I don't know what I want to know, and I'm okay with that. So how does that sound? People like that idea? Not knowing what you need to know and being okay with that? I don't know, Abby. Oh, God. So there are a lot of different ways people describe a very similar idea, but I've never built a fence in my life, but I know people that have. So when you look out in your yard and you're like, I want to build a fence out there, absolutely, I got a new dog, need a fence. You look outside, you're like, okay, I only need 20 posts. I could do, I don't know, post an hour, 20 hours. Give me 3 days. I can get this done in 3 days. And then they go outside and they got their shovel on the ground. Down they go. They hit a huge rock. Boulder, huge boulder. Then they got to call an excavator, got to dig up their backyard. 1 rock turns to 30 rocks. What happened to my 3 days? You know, it's going to take me at least 2 days to excavate, and then I got to put the dirt back in the ground. I got to find the dirt from the boulders that I took out. Got to pack the dirt down, lost grass. So it kind of ties into estimation and setting yourself up in the beginning of any sort of time-boxed iteration. Is, do you want a team that assumes there are rocks everywhere, or do you want a team that has those values that can say, I found a rock, this is going to take longer? You know, you get more done when you can do the latter, because the chances of you finding 20 rocks, 20 huge boulders, really depends on what you're working with, but it could be pretty slim. Another key takeaway here is you want to focus on continuous improvement over following best practices. Best practices and plans and rules can lead people to, you know, right off a cliff if they can't adapt. So improve, learn from your mistakes. Just because it was a best practice last time we did it doesn't mean that it needs to be a continued best practice. Found this nice little statistic on the different types of projects and if they were successful, challenged, or failed. Successful means that they met costs and the schedule. Challenged means that they were allowed to finish but missed the costs or the schedule or both. And failed means they just killed it altogether. It just decided it wasn't going to work. So, oops.
Missed a graphic.
I missed a graphic.
Why did you get 29%?
So this, I'm going to not even pretend this wasn't here. I was pretty agile when I built this, and I only had a certain amount of time to get it done, and that's what happened. That's reality. So this is an associated quote. So the Agile process is the universal remedy for software development project failure. Software applications developed through the Agile process have 3 times the success rate of traditional waterfall methods and a much lower percentage of time and cost overruns. But that's pretty cool. And there are a few different ways of being agile. Agile, and you know, an analogy here is, you know, Drupal is a CMS. So Agile is a CMS. Scrum, Kanban, XP, FTD, and Lean are just all ways of being agile. Going back to that diagram, Stacy's diagram, depending on the problem you're trying to solve, and how well you know how you're going to do it and what you need to do, you might find yourself adapting or adopting a different way of doing things. I don't know much about FTD or Lean, but they are ways of being. There are, I think, hundreds and hundreds of ways of doing this. These are just the top 5. So Scrum is a way of being agile. It's simple and can be understood and implemented quickly, which is key. It's managing the flow of work through a team, and it's an approach to manage complex problems. So you're throwing a complicated problem where you don't know how you're going to do it to the team, and you're letting the team self-organize and figure out how to solve that problem. It's collaborative, involving developers and customers in an ongoing dialogue, so it's multidisciplinary. So you're not just having a bunch of developers on a team. You need other people, designers, QA people. And it's a tool to build your own process. It in itself is not a process. So sometimes people try to take Scrum and do Scrum by the book. I think that could be really tough. They say, rip off a Band-Aid, but, when you're dealing with people and teams and their personalities and way of working, you just can't do it that way. So focus more on textbook Scrum, and then people can take that back and adopt its principles, and I guess any way they'd like, obviously. And it's just a way of thinking about solving problems. So Dilbert goes, I can't give you all these features in the first version, simplicity. Each feature needs to have what we call a user story. And then the boss goes, okay, here's a user story. Give me all your features or I'll ruin your life. So, yeah. So Scrum's simple framework, there are roles, events, and artifacts. I'm not going to dive too much into this. I kind of want to give a 5-minute introduction to Scrum and then leave time for questions. But there's a product owner, Scrum Master, Scrum team. Just take a look at that. Don't have a lot of time to dive into it. But you have a team, and the team does their due diligence to apply an appropriate standard of care to get work done. The Scrum Master oversees the team, doesn't manage the team, facilitates the communication of the team, and helps make the team better. The product owner maximizes the value of the team's work, and the business owner maximizes the value of the product. So in essence, the potential work goes to the product owner. Well, so the business owner, I guess this came together pretty quick. I wanted to have animations for it, but now we're looking at the whole thing. So for there to be potential work, the role of the business owner works with the stakeholders to develop a list of items that they want to do. That then becomes the potential work. The product owner coordinates with the business owner on what all that potential work is and brings that work back to the team and assigns priorities on all this work. So that work doesn't need to be, a 30-page detailed spec or documentation. That work is simply, these are the tasks that we need to get done. These are the stories that we're working on. This is the priority of those stories, and brings it to the team, and the team says, we can do this, this, and this, and then that's it. The team organizes themselves and produces results. The results go back to the stakeholders where they work to provide feedback on that in a review. And feedback is then provided to the business owner who works with the product owner who would also be involved in that conversation. And it just continues. It's an infinite loop until the job is done. And timeline, right? So the product owner works to define the product backlog, which then becomes the sprint, which then priorities are set to it, which are then handed to the team, and they go into something called a sprint backlog. The backlog tasks, because you don't tell the team exactly what to do, you just tell them what the intended result is, and the team figures out, okay, to do that, we're going to use Drupal, we're going to use these following 4 modules, we need the following vocabulary terms, this is going to be a view, we're going to need time to work with that event management system to figure out how to integrate it. So 30 days is one suggested time box period for this. So within a period of 30 days, the team will work as best as they can to accomplish the items in the sprint backlog. And they'll do that every 24 hours by checking in. So the Scrum Master will work with the team on the day's tasks. The team will say, this is what I'm working on, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm stuck on. The Scrum Master then has items that they need to, those are called impediments, that they find the answers to, either by talking to other people or coordinating with the business owner or the product owner. And then ideally, after 30 days, you're shipping something. You're getting something done. You're getting it out the door. And it's iterative in that you just continue to do it. So maybe you couldn't ship it. There are some bugs. The team decided they needed to add one more thing. Those items go into the backlog. The product owner works with the business owner to figure out what's the priority. That goes into another sprint. The team continues to deliver. So that was a lot of stuff that I've just been talking about for the past 45 minutes. Agile is really awesome. I could talk about it all day. So if any of this has interested you or you want to know more, we should definitely chat. Thanks. And I think I've got 4 minutes if anyone wants to ask a question.
And during the first model, you were saying like one of the things that would make a lot of sense is delivering software instead of like at the end, delivering it constantly throughout the whole process. When you're saying delivering the working software, are you saying like delivering it to the client, saying this is what I have so far, or where in the realm of the team does that get delivered?
Yeah, so the team works through a period of time, and at the end, one of the goals is to actually ship something, so they get as close to that as possible. But yeah, you don't need to actually deploy something into production or update a live site to get the feedback. You can do that through the form of a review. So at the end of every time box period, you would call all the stakeholders into the room. This is something that's led by the product owner. So the product owner would say, this is what we've done. This is how it works. This is, and sort of elicit feedback from the stakeholders that would then, either we did it great, whenever that happens, or there are some things to tweak, or there's a bug or something, and all that gets recorded and then thrown into the next sprint. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
So when we're dealing with new potential clients, so I can. One of the issues with clients is that they always want very crisp projections. They want to know it's going to cost exactly this much.
Oh, for
all
sure.
of that. So if you are using the Agile methodology as a business, do you have any suggestions on how you do proposals and bids that can factor that in, but not freak out your clients?
Absolutely. So there's a way to do Agile where you're not actually telling the client that you're doing Agile. You're just organizing yourself that way internally to deliver value towards, you can do this exercise internally. That's one way. The second is if you have a client that comes to you, we get proposals all the time where there's a really well-developed 45-page statement of work. And it's like, this works, this is done when you've done all these things. Can't really have a conversation. You can, if it's a new client, you're taking a risk there. But a lot of times in that situation, what we would do is we would break up all that work into sprints and then deliver on those internally to make sure that we're tracking towards that statement of work. But in terms of the client comes to you with an ambiguous plan and no direction whatsoever, we found that an honest conversation about how we would approach this project and then focusing on delivering the value of the team and all the work that we can do and all the work that we've done in our experience has gone a long way.
Okay.
Anything else?
You're doing incremental deliveries, at the end of each sprint or time box period, delivering something, whether it's a demo or a review or whatever. What's the best way you found to get sign off from the client, both in those intermediate phases, during the demos and at the end, that you've met their objectives and the system does what it wants? Are you using user stories and then you sign off on those, or what's the best?
Yep, you can do that. Running them through the work that you've done, and then it does it or it doesn't. But verbal confirmation that you're heading on the right path is also really valuable.
Because he using verbal, you get no written sign off of.
Well, yeah, we don't do any formal contracts, because really you're selling the time. If you think about it from like, what are you selling? You're not selling the statement of work, you're selling the time and the resources. So the contract would look a lot like LCM agrees to do 8 sprints. Each sprint includes 2 developers, a tester and a designer and a Scrum Master. And did LCM fulfill its contract? Yeah, it gave that time and those resources. And 31 seconds if anyone has a final question.
Can you just define really quick time box?
Yeah, so one of the things that's really important is that you can't let things go on forever. So you set a period, so it's usually 30 days is what the recommended time period is. So the first day of those 30 days, you have a planning meeting. So the product owner brings in all those good stories and all that fun work that the team is then going to spend the next 30 days doing. And then the product owner sort of delivers it. The team looks at it and says, we can do this, we can do this. They're not committing, they're going to do it, but they're not signing on the line. They're not signing their life away. And then the Scrum Master is checking in with the team on a daily basis. How are they doing? How are we tracking towards the items that we said we were going to do? And then at the end of those 30 days, there's that review. So you can do it for different periods of time. It's good to deliver software frequently, so you wouldn't want to do like a 6-month sprint, because then you're really piling on a lot. Like a really efficient team, a high-performing team can do a lot of work in 6 months. And you wouldn't want to just deploy all that. You can
It's kind of a way to wrap it in this container of,
Yeah.
we need to get these goals done with roughly this kind of time frame.
Well, yeah, you fix the time. So what's one of the things that cannot change? So you're saying 30 days, 4 weeks. This is exactly how much time that we have.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it, I think.
That's good.
Thanks.
That was a lot.